It was a quiet, moonless night at the cemetery. The only faint light came from a few stars that were barely shining in the sky, and the only sound was the soft crunch of gravel under my feet. I was here to visit my grandmother's grave, but the darkness and the eerie silence made me uneasy. With time, I had a strange feeling that I was being watched. I took a deep breath and began walking towards my grandmother's plot. And as I walked past the rows of headstones, something was off. The air grew colder and my breath began to fog. As I continued walking, my hair began to raise. Then I heard a sound of laughter coming from somewhere nearby. I was paused, straining to listen, but the laughter faded away. Suddenly, when I tried walking again, I had a twig snap off and I spun around, but there was no one there. My heart was pounding in my chest as I quickened my pace, hoping to reach my grandmother's grave soon. But then I saw something moving in the corner of my eye. As if I was dreaming, when I looked around, there was nothing to be seen. The laughter started again and grew closer. I'm not the one to scare easily, so I gathered all my strength and all my audacity and proceeded to my granny's grave to drop her the flowers. But as I was there, I began to feel the cold air blowing around me, then swiftly changing to warm air and back and forth. I couldn't explain this phenomenon, and I decided to leave the cemetery. As I rushed out, the laughter followed me and only intensified. I hurried, feeling a lot scared than I anticipated, and my palms were all sweaty. It was only when I got to the car that the laughter stopped. I drove away home, but every time and then when I'm asleep, I am often woken up by the laughter of that night in my head. I swore to never go to the cemetery at night again. I was visiting my grandmother's grave, and as I knelt down to place the flowers on the headstone, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced around, but there was no one in sight. Suddenly, I felt a light pat on my shoulder, and I turned around to see who it was, but there was no one there. I next heard a faint whisper behind me. I turned once more, but there was no one there. The whispering grew louder, and I realized that it was coming from the grave next to my grandfather. The hair on the back of my neck stood up as I leaned closer to listen. The whispering turned into eerie chanting, and I could feel a cold chill run down my spine. I felt like the ground beneath me was capsizing, and I stumbled back in fear. I watched in horror as a hand emerged from the dead. The hand was followed by a figure, and I let out an otherworldly scream. I tried to run, but my feet felt heavy as if they were rooted to the ground. The evil spirits closed in on me, and I could feel its icy breath on my face. I closed my eyes, expecting the worst, but as I opened my eyes again, the spirit was gone. I stumbled out of the cemetery, my heart pounding in my chest. As I looked back, I saw peace and serenity once again reigning at the cemetery, as though what I had just seen was one big lie. I was terribly disturbed. It was a still dark night as my friend and I drove pointlessly in the night. A thought came to our minds that instantly brought chills and anticipation. Suffice it to say, we had drunk a little more than we should and ended up agreeing to stop by the old cemetery. I had always been fascinated by graves and the stories they held, so it was a no-brainer. We pulled over, and as we walked through the rows of tombstones, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. It somehow seemed a great idea, and my friend seemed really content with the idea. But as we reached the oldest section of the cemetery, I felt a chill run down my spine. In the darkness, I saw a figure standing by the grave. I couldn't make out who or what it was, but something about it seemed off. I tried to point my friend to the direction of the mysterious figure, but he saw nothing, and we continued walking. I was puzzled as to why I'm the only one seeing this. Suddenly, my friend saw the same figure but at a different location, and he grew goosebumps immediately. Then we began to hear voices coming from the graves. It was subtle chanted whispers which we quite couldn't pinpoint their location. The faint whispers were followed by rustling noises. At first, we tried to convince ourselves that it was probably the fear of graves in the night getting to us, and that we were much stronger than that. But as we continued walking, my friend stumbled upon a grave that seemed to be freshly dug. There were no markings, no name, no date of birth, nothing. It was as if someone had just been buried there. Suddenly, we heard footsteps. My lips went dry and I was out of breath. We can't make this stuff up. Something is going on in this cemetery. We both instantly became sober. We ran as quickly as we could back to the car and drove off, screeching tires as we went our way. Upon reaching home, we realized that the back seats of our Honda Civic were ransacked and torn. To this day, we still can't explain the events of